Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are and whatever time you see this video. We have a very special guest with us, Dr. Yvonne Ridley, with us. She is a journalist, an author, and a writer, and she has I would also say she is an adventurous too. So, welcome to the show, Doctor. How are you today?
I'm very well, and thank you very much for the invite. Delighted to be here. Well, not quite here, but in our virtual worlds.
That is true. That is how most of the meetings are happening today. Our whole world is conducting their business virtually. That's a new kind of part of a new norm. It would be the part of the new norm. How it looks like. So yeah, before we go into more details, we would like to hear more about you. I know we've been researching about you, and we've seen this is quite an interesting story. You started as a journalist in UK, and then you wanted to cover an interesting topic of the century, and then you got dramatic changes from there. So we would like to hear more from you on that, please. Yourself.
Yes, well, it's nearly 20 years ago now, and for your older viewers, I'm sure that they still have extremely vivid memories of where they were on September 11, 2001. I was in my newsroom when I saw people clustering around the office televisions to just wonder what on earth is going on. And of course, that was the trigger for me to become involved in a story which ended up being life-changing for so many people, including myself. After the horrific events of 9/11, I was sent out to Pakistan, and the drums of war were beating between America and the Taliban, which were in control, ruling Afghanistan at that point. And I was waiting at the border for the war to start. And I put on the all-enveloping burqa, or the blue chador, and with a couple of guides, I sneaked into the country because I just thought that for me, I worked for a Sunday newspaper. We were looking for something different to what the other journalists would be going for. And I was there for about 2 days, and then I was heading back towards the border when, unfortunately, I was captured by the Taliban and held for 11 days. It was a terrifying experience, but against all the odds, I came through it and was released on humanitarian grounds. I couldn't believe that this was happening, but they held on to other Westerners, but they released me. And that experience in itself made me realize that the faith of Islam was something that people lived. They didn't just pick it up for Friday prayers and put it back down again. It was the way they ate, the way they slept, the way they prayed. It was a whole life system. And I just realized that as a journalist covering the Middle East and Asia, I knew so little about this faith. And so I began to study it so that I could write with some authority about the Muslim world. And very soon that educational exercise turned into a spiritual journey. And 2 years later, I ended up embracing Islam. But people get confused. They think I joined the Taliban, and I didn't.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, good to hear that. I mean, you're back. I mean, you're released, and you liked it, and it was your choice to join art, not by force, which is happy to hear that. I mean, you chose what you like. So we are happy for you. So, what is it like? I mean, can we talk a little bit more about? I mean, before you go into the Afghanistan, what was your life like? Like, I mean, was you? I mean, I know you're a Westerner and you're in UK and you were a journalist. What was your life before going to Taliban? I mean, Afghanistan.
Well, I was the chief reporter of the Sunday Express newspaper. I worked hard. I played hard. I wouldn't say I was a particularly bad person, but after that experience, I realised that I couldn't work anymore as an undercover journalist because I had become the story. I was front page news, so it was very hard for me to go on any undercover assignments. And so I reinvented myself and started focusing on war reporting and humanitarian reporting. And as I say, I became a Muslim, which is just another part of my identity. It's just one. I'm also a wife and a mother and a daughter. So there are many different layers to me.
Good.
And so my life did change quite considerably. I worked in the Middle East for a while, and now I'm living in Scotland. I'm still working as a journalist, but I have started out on a trilogy of Scottish fictional books called The Caledonians. And I'm just finishing the second one now. The first one has been published. This is me just pushing it.
We cannot see it properly. Maybe you have to move it close to your center, please. Yeah, a little more to your right side. Your
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's The Caledonians, but the second book, it's I'm nearly finished that now, but it opens up in India. And it's called The Curse of the Sinclairs, and it all revolves around a curse, and there's an Indian theme in there, and there's some diamonds that are in there, and I've learned so much about the history of the Indian diamonds, which were the best in the world, from the Golconda mines.
Oh,
and
wow.
So I've been yes, there's been quite a journey actually into India as well, and if it weren't for lockdown, there are so many places now in India that I really want to visit. So maybe one day, once this pandemic is over and we all settle down to whatever normal life will become. But I just thought a diamond was a diamond, but among the diamond experts, if you mention the Golconda diamonds, my goodness, people get so excited even today, even though I think it's been more than 100 years since the last mine was being worked in that area. And so it was quite interesting, because although the book is fictional, there are aspects where I have to do research and go into details. So that was very enjoyable. So that region of India is very much on my to-do list once this pandemic is over.
Gotcha. Very interesting. I know, I mean, you tried to go there, I mean, a couple of times and it did not work out, but that's okay. We'll come back to you later. Yeah, Golconda is the place, I mean, where we are from, I mean, where our office is right now, we are streaming this video right now from. So yes, I mean, that's interesting that you are interested in going there. Hopefully when we go there, we'll see what our team can meet you, and then if need any help, I'm sure we can talk about it at the time. So I want to ask you one thing. I mean, I know we all, I mean, everybody curious after a certain stage, like, I mean, we would like to know more about other people too, let it be Christianity or Buddhism or Hinduism or Muslims. So we learn it and we respect. I mean, we understand and we respect, and then we move forward. So what is that? I mean, motivated you to embrace it so much, and you're becoming a very big advocate of Muslims right now. So we all study. I mean, out of curiosity, but I mean, you went. I mean, a couple of more steps beyond. Intellect inquisitiveness. So we would like to know more about what made you to take those steps.
Well, it wasn't a huge leap of faith. It was a big change in lifestyle, but I was brought up a Christian. I was a practicing Christian. I went to church, and I was a former Sunday school teacher. And I have always had a core belief in God. So when I started reading the Holy Quran, I began to realize that there were lots of similarities and parallels between Christianity and Judaism and Islam, which I hadn't realized before. In fact, actually, there's also quite a bit of similarities with Sikhism and Hinduism and other faiths. You know, there is this thread which is running through all of them. And I do quite a bit of interfaith work through my position as General Secretary of the European Muslim League. But so it wasn't a huge leap of faith. I'm still praying to the same God. However, I no longer drink. And I used to drink like a fish, but I no longer drink or smoke. And I dress more modestly. But, you know, to be brutally frank, I'm at an age where it's good for women to cover up more than not. So yes, you know, there's been quite a change. And I eat halal food, but I'm also becoming more aware of the switch in people's diets, and vegetarian diets and vegan diets are becoming, I wouldn't say trendy. I would say that, you know, there's a lot of common sense if we are to preserve this planet and look after our health. There's a lot of common sense to be had in moving away from a meat diet. But so not that that's, you know, I mean, Islam does have meat in the diet. So it's, as I say, it wasn't a huge leap of faith. And in my early years as a Muslim, after I converted, I had the pleasure of visiting southern India. And so I got a little taste of how, you know, exciting a place it is to visit. and people are so hospitable and kind and polite. Or that, that was my experience. So I was hoping to go again, but unfortunately I couldn't get a visa for there was a big rally in Hyderabad, and but we just used Skype to make the speech anyway, which I was very keen to make, and it was about the empowerment of women. And so although I couldn't get to Hyderabad, I was still able to. The speech was broadcast. So. Mm-hmm.
We heard that one. I mean, in 2013, you tried to go there and you were not able to go because there are some other issues. With the other leader in Hyderabad made different comments, so it kind of fired up the issues. So they have to, to make a safety measures in concern. They want to do it. So you talking about the women empowerment. In general, let it be the Western, advanced countries also. We are even today we talk about women empowerment for sure. Even in the UK or US, the women got the rights to own the properties very late, and now some places, even in the US, some states even got the right to vote also later part of the 1900s. So the women empowerment is a topic or issue has been there for a while. All over the world. Any region. So but in Muslims community, as an outsider, we think it is a little different. So I may be wrong. I wish I'm wrong, and I hope I'm wrong. But they need more of this kind of support system for them to come out of their being oppressed or being dependent. They are not self-sufficient or self-reliance. So what is your say? And you've been researching and you've been advocating and you've been working toward the cause. So we'd like to hear more from you on those things.
Well, one of the things that really impressed me about Islam was the Holy Quran makes it crystal clear that women are equal in spirituality, worth, and education. And because of this, I can't understand why the role of women has slipped backwards over the centuries, which it has. Because, Islam is having a very tough time at the moment, but there was a golden age where Muslims were developing architecture, engineering, science, medicine. They were at the forefront, breaking through so many barriers to bring inventions to the world in algebra, in arithmetic, and geometry. So many inventions came from the Muslim world, and during that golden period, women were quite visible. And unfortunately, we can't ignore the colonial issues, because especially with the Black Lives Matter movement, but colonialism swept into various countries, and that is when the rights of women really started to deteriorate, especially in Islam. So women, I feel Muslim women need to regain their position, which was right next to the men, shoulder to shoulder. And of course, some of the patriarchy don't like this idea at all. But, the issue of feminism crops up. And I just say, well, I am pro-women, but I'm not anti-men. And, women cannot make progressive strides without the support of their brothers, and a lot of men are supporting women in their bid to get equality, and we're still struggling in the West. It's not. There are very few places where I think women could turn around and say, yes, this is the world that we want to live in. We are still struggling to close the pay gap in Britain, for instance. The rights of women under President Trump, it could be argued, are diminishing by the day. And so the issue I have with equality for women is not one for the Muslim world, or not one for the Asian world, or not one for the East. It is a global issue. And but we are moving, I think, in the right direction.
I agree. I mean, yes, it is a global issue, no doubt about it. But I mean, at the same time, if you look at the relative context, relatively, Western countries are relatively better, I would say. From looking at the opportunities for the women, point of view, compared to the other parts of the world. It'd be India is also okay, but still, even in India, we do have some issues. Let us be, the remote areas, we have honor killings, and we have, dowry issues. So we have, these are all, I feel personally, because they are not personally or financially independent, and those are the issues. So do you think is it the insecurity of the men made the women into that? Force them to that side, and then they want to manage and they want to keep it that way. They want to protect. What do you think? This has gone from, as you said, one day in Muslim community they were shoulder to shoulder, and what made them to go back to this situation where we are right now?
It was the instability caused by the arrival of colonial powers from France, from England, from Portugal, from Spain. Wherever the colonial powers went, the impact, or the net impact, was for the position of women to be diminished. And it is quite interesting because these colonial powers actually encouraged the patriarchy. They, especially the British Empire, although it had a queen in Victoria, the imperialism and colonialism at that time really did no favors for women at all. And, I think you mentioned it earlier on, that in Islam, women had rights to run business, to own property, to get divorced. All sorts of rights were open to them. And these rights didn't come into the gift of Western women until centuries later. So it has been quite tough. And I mentioned the Black Lives Matter movement. One of the biggest misrepresentations about Islam is that it promoted slavery, when far from it. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a man who really pushed for the abolition of slavery. In fact, the message that he was giving about slavery was only picked up hundreds of years later by Western abolitionists, and that is something that it's really important to remember, because when Islam first came onto the scene in Arabia, slavery was already flourishing and thriving from east to west. And this new religion took about, I think it was 23 years for Muhammad, peace be upon him, to deliver Islam. And it was done slowly and brought in change slowly. And by the time he died, he had given away or given the freedom to all of the slaves under him and in his household. But of course, at that time, he's trying to sell this new religion to a very wealthy, privileged, elite people who were told, you know, come and embrace this religion. If he'd said to them right from the start, no alcohol, no promiscuity, and you can get rid of all of your slaves, people would have just said, what? You know, it came in gradually. But yes, Islam did a lot of positive, progressive things to end slavery.
Very interesting to know about their stand on the slavery very long back, which is interesting. So why? I mean, I know. I mean, I have friends and I have colleagues and I have many people. I mean, from the Muslim community, and they're all nice, and we like them each other, no doubt about it. But why is there is a concept? I mean, in everyone's mind. I mean, we have some group of people within that under the name of that religion are, I mean, getting into creating all the trouble in the world. I mean, that's what my opinion. I mean, our opinion in general. So why is it so? I mean, you've been, I mean, extensively studied, I mean, Middle East, and then you've been into the war zones. So we'd like to hear more from you. So what is that, I mean, making them, is there anything which we are feeling or which is natural or which is something, a problem? Usually, I would say somebody will be troublesome only if there is an issue, either psychological issues or financial issues or being threatened by somebody else. Usually we do see those kind of people around us. So, I mean, in this particular group, I mean, we see those characters. So what is that driving them to behave like that?
Well, you know, going back again to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he did warn the new generation of Muslims that there will come a group of people who will sound very holy, who will have long beards, who will recite the Quran, who will act in a very pious way and make the rest of us all feel inadequate or that we're not doing enough in our faith. And he said that the Quran will not go past their throat. In other words, they look good, they'll sound good, but they will not be Islamic. And he warned about the arrival of these people. And the first group came, I think, 20 years after his death. They caused absolute mayhem, very much in the same way that Daesh or ISIS have caused problems today. And, you know, we were warned, and yet, for some reason, human beings never seem to learn from history. We never seem to look back in history and try and learn the lessons. And if we had learned the lessons, then the Muslim communities would be equipped to deal with these rogue groups whenever they pop up. And I think that we've probably handled it quite badly as Muslims. In the West, you know, we've lost quite a few of our young people who've gone over to Iraq and Syria and you know, they've joined these rogue groups. And I just think that if only young Muslims were able to talk to somebody or go to their mosque and ask questions that maybe they don't want to ask their parents. But instead, these young people have want to learn more, and they've gone onto the internet and they've been groomed by a very slick operation. And so, you know, we lost a lot of young people, and you know, they went off and they were treated like cannon fodder, and it was a real tragedy. Of course, the media always looks for a villain to blame, and Islam was conveniently held up as this violent faith, which is simply not true. When you and I first met, the first thing we said was salam to each other, which is a greeting of peace. And like most religions, Islam is a promoter of peace, and it's not violent at all. But unfortunately, you will get people on the fringes of any faith who cause problems. And, you know, you look at the conflicts in the world today, and it has very little to do with religion and everything to do with territory and land. And that is what, you know, is happening.
Got you. Very interesting topics you brought in. I mean, as you said rightly, I mean, any religion, let it be Hinduism or Buddhism or Christianity or Muslims, I mean, the religion is to set a path for the human beings to lead, and they always preach that be good, do good, say good, hear good, and all those things. I mean, be nice to your neighbor and those who help other people. These are things, I mean, very common in any of the scriptures. I mean, you read, I mean, let it be Upanishads or let it be Buddhist preachings or Christian Bible. These are the things where they say help the poor people, help the people who are in need. So, see, as you mentioned earlier, I mean, Muslims, I mean, some reason, I mean, they were not able to handle the some rogue group well in the beginning stage, and now it has gone into this, and it is eating away, I mean, many of the younger people, I mean, who are insecure in their lives, like whether it be like financially or psychologically or morally. They are the people who are getting attracted to these things. I mean, I know we could, in general, I mean, I've not done any research, I've not done any, I mean, I've not done a kind of study or research you've done. I mean, purely a general theory and the glancing through the internet and the emails, the news, we have been coming to these conclusions. So, I mean, what is that? I mean, now, I mean, the Muslim community doing to proceed? There are two things. Every group has everybody would like to prosper. Let it be Christianity or Buddhism or Muslims or Hindu. They would like to prosper in their own way, in a good way, without harming the other people. So what is it now, I mean, Muslim community is doing to protect their own people and separating them from these rogue elements?
Well, I think that you know, whenever we get into a sticky situation and we are struggling to find a solution, I always say to people, what would our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, what would he do? And, you know, we're in a world where it's very difficult to find the right role models for our children. But we just have to, again, look back in history and follow the example of Muhammad. And he had an answer, a solution for most things. And even in the most hostile arena, he would emerge with a dignified response. And we are having a very tough time at the moment. But when you look at how he tried to deliver the message of Islam in the 7th century, he had a much more difficult time. And I'm sure that most of your Muslim listeners anyway will have heard the story of this woman in particular who was always very hostile and very rude to him. When he would be in prayer, she would even throw rubbish at him, and she would verbally abuse him. And she was a dreadful woman who didn't like the idea of Islam. And this was happening on a daily occurrence, this abuse that he was receiving. And one day he was passing where she normally hung out, and she wasn't there. And he's thinking, where is she? Then he discovered that she was ill. So 99% of people would say good and get on with it. But not him. He went and he found her, and he went and visited her sickbed. And that is, so when we get into tough situations, when we're under fire from all sides, we should ask ourselves, what would he do? And the last thing that we should do is retreat into an Islamic bubble. When you look at the early generation of Muslims, and they were all under attack. And at one time, it looked as though that they could be killed, and then Islam would just disappear. So Muhammad stretched out to the king of Abyssinia, and the first generation of Muslims, many of them left and stayed with the king, who was a Christian, and they stayed in his care and under his protection. So there you have the leader of Islam reaching out to a Christian leader. And this is what we should do, is reach out to people of other faith and no faith, and show them mutual respect, speak to them as we would like to be spoken to. And I know it's difficult because there's a lot of hate out there, not just towards Muslims. There's a lot of hate in general. I don't know whether it's the emergence of the social networks and being able to do things without accountability and having, acting in an anonymous way on Twitter and Facebook and all of these platforms. But the world is turning into a nastier place, and I think that really we have to start and be kind and kinder to each other.
Gotcha. That's a very nice way of saying the things to the people, which hopefully people will, go back and think and relate themselves to those points which you have mentioned in their own, every religion has their own way of saying, conveying the point to stay, good, or say be good, and those kind of things. So yeah, we will, hopefully people will follow it. So yeah, as we have seen, people, when they are insecure, that's when they try to attack the other people. You usually see, when you look at it during 99 and 2000, the whole world was booming, or when the economy is good, I don't see these kind of things, discrimination things, because they need people. So they do, employ everybody, and they don't discriminate, and they talk, and they get the work things done, and they make money and then walk out. But when things turn bad, that's when you see, okay, you're different and I'm different, and those kind of things will come out. That's a different topic. We'll come back to it some other day. I don't want to divert this topic from this to the other thing. You were talking about the women. You're mostly the advocate of the women empowerment. So what is your so far? What is your what is that you are fighting for, and what have you achieved so far?
Well, one of the things that I do is I go around to schools and talk to the girls and try and empower them, and try and stir in them this belief that they can achieve anything if they set their mind to it. And I really think that that's true. As I refer back again to this golden age of Islam, where Muslims were building the most fantastic structures, and you look at the buildings in India, the Taj Mahal, and other great buildings. These were all down to Muslim architects, engineers, scientists, the medical breakthroughs that we have. The first hospital in the world was in Baghdad. One of the oldest universities in the world is in Fez, Morocco, and that was launched by a woman. There's so many great things, and we need to capture those moments again. And I'm sure that we can. We've lost confidence, we're under fire. The media is very hostile towards us. We've got a president of the United States who is just awful to Muslims, as well as Mexicans and immigrants and women, and this is not a healthy climate, and I think that these things are cyclical, and hopefully we're coming round to a period of reflection and kindness and treating each other with mutual respect, and I'm hoping that will come round. I certainly think that this pandemic has given us all a lot to think about and reflect on. It's affected so many people. I don't know what the new normal is going to be. I don't think any of us do. But hopefully we will emerge from this wiser, kinder, and not as demanding as we were.
So you want to talk on one point. You mentioned that earlier. The olden days. Some of the women. They started in university and then the buildings and those things. But most of them, I believe. I'm guessing because by my history knowledge. What I have seen in our Indian history, the women who grew to the power, they were from the noble families, not from a common. They're not a commoner. So in those days, noble families. Wherever you are, usually, you are in a different platform, and you have different. You are treated differently, and you have different access to many other things compared to the common. So how do you compare? How do you say a common person? The life of a common person. Let us say in the Western countries right now, a common woman can grow to start a business and grow. Okay, we have other challenges, no doubt about it, but it is relatively little different. But they can grow a business and make a living and make it a big way, and have an American dream. I would say, let us say, American dream. We call it as in here, so they can have an American dream. But is it possible I don't think it was possible for a common person, even olden days, a common woman, and also the women. And even today, I feel, it is, there are some challenges for them to overcome and have a big dream. Is that right?
Well, I think that the progression of women can actually, you're right, it has started off from the wealthy and the privileged and the elite, but that is that has been the way of things for men as well. The opportunities have come. I think the important thing, the key, is education, and giving a good education to everybody, regardless of their class, will give more opportunities for the people at the bottom to start to rise. But, you know, in politics, the only women who were actually getting into politics in the early days were very privileged, wealthy, elite women. You look at the politicians entering the British Parliament now, for instance, and they're coming from working class backgrounds. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, his father was a bus driver. There are other examples of Asians that have really risen quite high from very humble beginnings. And I think a lot of it has to do with the Asian work ethic anyway, which has always been impressive. I mean, I'm so old, I can remember corner shops that when they were run by white people and they closed on early on a Saturday, they were shut on a Sunday, and there was a half day on a Wednesday, and Thursday was a late night and maybe be open till 7. And then in Britain, we had this influx of Asians from Uganda, and they were, a lot of them were business people, and they invested and they started opening, buying the corner shops and the supermarkets, and totally transformed the way that we shop today, and brought in the concept of the 24/7 shop. It was incredible. And I really think that it was the arrival of the Asians that triggered the shopping revolution certainly in Britain. And, you know, whoever hears now of a food shop that's closed during the week, you know, the work ethic has really kicked in. And I think that we can all learn so much from each other. And when you get somebody like President Trump, the supposedly most powerful man in the world, decrying immigrants and migrants, I just find it incredibly sad.
I got you. I mean, I'll leave that topic for some other day. With the politics, especially the elections are right now close by, so I don't want to take one particularly. I mean, before we go, I mean, I'd like to ask you about one more person. I mean, Malala. I mean, she's another famous personality in the Muslim community and the women from Pakistan. I mean, this is a young lady. I mean, she fought the war, and she's also working towards the uplifting of the women, or empowering the women. So can you talk or say anything about her? I mean, I've not met her. I've never met her, and I've been seeing her on the news and reading about her. So if you can say something about her, would be nice.
Well, I've not met her personally, but I was horrified when her case first came to light, and I have been very uncomfortable with the way that she has been treated by some sections of the Pakistan community, who have the craziest conspiracy theories that have emerged around Malala. This is a child who was shot in the head by somebody who called themselves Taliban. I don't know, I mean, we know that the word Taliban means student. I don't know any student who would hate a child so much that he would want to shoot her in the head. But she was targeted, as were others, and she She nearly died. It was the skill of the surgeons in Pakistan first that saved her. And then she was brought for her own safety to Britain. And she developed and thrived, getting the education she'd always dreamed of. And she graduated just last month in Oxford, at Oxford University. She's just a stunning achievement of what can happen when you educate a child. But the hostility towards her has been incredible. Somebody told me, she wants to be another Benazir Bhutto. I said, who would want to be Benazir Bhutto? She ended up being assassinated. Think about it. And then others are saying she deliberately got herself shot. I don't know anybody crazy enough to stand in front of the barrel of a gun when someone's pulling the trigger. All of this nonsense, and she's been called a Western puppet and a stooge of the West. I do believe that she is vulnerable to exploitation by Western leaders because they all wanted to be photographed with Malala. But as I've said to her critics, she is the only Pakistani I know who has stood in the Oval Office and said to the US president, your drone policy isn't working. And she raised this horrific drone policy with Barack Obama and really made him feel uncomfortable. And as I say to the critics, well, if she's a stooge of the West, that hasn't worked well, has it? But, there's another Malala that I discovered, and 140 years on the 25th of July, just a few days' time, is the anniversary of the Battle of Maiwand in Afghanistan, when the Afghans were losing against the British army, and this girl called Malala went running onto the battlefield, and she pulled up the Afghan flag, or the rallying flag, and people were being shot and killed all around her, and she waved this flag and really encouraged the Afghan soldiers to fight, and they overturned the army, and they turned around and they had this great victory. And that woman, Malala, people seem to think that Afghan women are very shy, quiet, retiring creatures. Well, Afghanistan has a great history as well, and this woman, I do hope that there's some sort of recognition or ceremony or acknowledgement of her heroic deeds, because she certainly reversed the fortunes in the Battle of Maiwand that day. So there's two great Malalas. It's a very good name.
Good. Thanks for sharing your views on about her, and good to know more about her through you. Thank you. And I know, coming back to you, and your story has also been taken as a top secret movie in Hollywood. You're also part of that movie. Your role was also part of that movie. Do you want to talk about that?
Oh, this was the movie called Official Secrets.
Okay.
Yes, it was 2003. The America and Britain were determined to go to war in Iraq, and I was handed a document which showed that American intelligence was ordering British intelligence to spy on the United Nations Security Council. And it was an incredible email that I received from the NSA, which is even more secretive than the CIA. And they were ordering British intelligence to tap the phones of, or bug the phones of the United Nations to find out which way the members were going to vote in the event they went for a second resolution for the war in Iraq. And it took me 3 or 4 weeks to get that story published because the majority of papers were pro-war and they wouldn't be interested. And it happened because Catherine Gunn, one of the GCHQ workers, which is the spy centre in Britain, printed off this email. She gave it to another person, and that person gave it to me. The person, the go-between, I called Isabel, and she wasn't portrayed in the film. And Isabel did not get the scrutiny that Catherine Gunn got, but the two of them worked together. And it was a very interesting time. It was fraught with all sorts of problems. Homes were raided and people lost their jobs. But then the war started. What is interesting is nobody is being held to account for spying on the United Nations Security Council, which is in itself an illegal act. And there's a lot of pressure being put upon Russia at the moment because of Russia's, allegations against Russia's spying and meddling. But, any country that has an intelligence agency, I think they're all at it.
So hopefully the movie is going well, and I think they released sometime last year. I think end of the last year, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yes.
So good to hear that. And so, do you want to say anything about your books or any message to the audience?
Well, if you like issues that are around Scotland or Scottish issues, and you like Scottish history, then please order your copy of The Caledonians. And this is the first one, Mr. Petrie's Apprentice. The second one, I am sure, will be enjoyed by a lot of people from India because, as I say, I go right into the history of the diamonds and the Golconda diamonds, and so that there's there's a couple of Hindu gods that are in there as well. It's very as I say, it was quite a fascinating journey for me to go on for research. But once the pandemic is over, maybe I'll be able to go and see for myself.
Thank you very much for coming onto the show, Dr. Yvonne Ridley, and sharing your views and your experiences. Thank you, and have a nice rest of the evening for you. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Have a nice day. Nice evening. Thank you.
You too.